Without divisions, maybe the path to an ACC championship game made a little bit lighter for Dave Dorn and crew, and we'll talk a little bit beyond 2023. We got Corey Smith on the line. Pack Pride is the destination there. Check out Corey's work on Pack Pride 247 Sports. Corey, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I am doing just fine, just trying to get revved up for this football season that's fast approaching and trying to get in as much prep work as possible. So had to flag you down to get the latest on the Wolfpack. But before we get to this 2023 edition, everybody's thinking 2024 and beyond, especially in the ACC, where things could crumble at any moment, or they could be solidified to, I don't know, like 2036 is kind of a guess of a year that might be, things might be stabilized till then. We'll see what the legal guys and what who wins out there. But the fascinating NC State slice of this, of course, Corey, was the vote that was taken concerning Stanford and Cal's entry into the league. And there were needed, correct me if I'm wrong, with Notre Dame also voting, which that's a whole other story, but Notre Dame getting a full vote as a non-football member, 15 votes, and they need, I believe, 12, and only got 11. Which still means that most of the conference would like to see Stanford and Cal join the conference, solidify, gain more territory, kind of go with that Big 12 approach to just bring on more schools. And of course, Stanford and Cal bring tremendous academics, and Stanford, one of the best athletic programs across the board in the country. The curious vote for me was NC State voting against it, because obviously Clemson, Florida State are getting the most consideration for having a viable option to the SEC or the Big Ten. North Carolina is also put in that category. NC State obviously felt confident, at least unless I'm not reading something here on the surface, that they would be able to find a more desirable landing spot, and why they didn't want Cal and Stanford in the league.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for NC State here was, first of all, they're, basically tied and kind of lockstep with UNC, and most of the decisions they're kind of making together on what they're doing across the board with things. But also from the NC State standpoint, I know, the brand may not be as big as FSU or, even Miami or Clemson or even UNC, but the football has been there over the last several years. Over the last decade, Dave Doran has slowly gotten the team to where it is now. You've got historic players like a Phillip Rivers of the past, Mario Williams, obviously Bradley Chubb, and then, most recently multiple offensive linemen going to the league as first-round picks. So there's been a tradition of good football within the program, and they feel like they're on the cusp of being able to truly compete in not only the ACC, but be able to compete nationally. So they feel pretty good about their standing. And I think there's also a little bit more confidence from a lot of teams, because while there's not like 3 super conferences being built, there's probably 2 super conferences between the SEC and Big Ten. But there's another avenue now with the Big 12 and what they're doing and adding teams, and, the Pac-12 kind of going away. You're seeing some independents start looking at them, like a UConn potentially. So for an NC State, you feel pretty good about the fact that you could be tied in with somebody like a UNC and try to go wherever they go. Or you could potentially be in another one I've heard is if UNC and UVA potentially go to somewhere like the Big Ten, NC State could look at somebody like Virginia Tech and say, hey, let's go in lockstep together to somewhere like the SEC or the Big 12 and bring some other brands, because for the Big 12, there are some good brands. Like, I'm not going to say like TCU and Oregon, well, not Oregon, but a couple others aren't big brands. Those are good brands. But for NC State and Virginia Tech, they feel like those could be 2 pretty decent brands to be able to add to that, or potentially look at the SEC as well.
So why add Stanford and Cal, distribute the money for a couple more other slices as well, further dilute the pool, and while we try to, and then make it more difficult for us to leave the league, because then there are more dissenting votes that are needed, because right now it's 8 out of 14, and they're extremely close to that, because we saw that 7 number and NC State being part of that dissenting vote a couple months ago in regards to the 7 that challenge the grant of rights.
Yeah, and another thing too, that's one of the piece that I was going to add in there as well. But let's not also forget, like, we don't know exactly what all could happen with things like the grant of rights at this point, because if if you open things up to other teams being added, is there a loophole there where a team like FSU, Clemson could say, all right, y'all want to add these guys? Okay, we voted against it. We're going. Is there a way through a back channel there, through loopholes, to be able to potentially exit because of adding additional teams? And at the same time, like you said, you're adding more votes to that are going against the bottom line of what teams like NC State, Virginia Tech, we saw UNC was in that discussion, along with Miami, Clemson, FSU, all those teams. I know I'm forgetting somebody here, but those teams were looking potentially for ways to get out. If you add a Stanford, Cal, and potentially even SMU was another one that was being discussed, then all of a sudden it becomes, all right, you need even more of a majority. If you add 3 additional teams, then you need even greater than that. So it just becomes such murky waters there to be able to try to figure that out.